This is the download from Sounds Profitable, your daily source for the essential news in the business of podcasting. I'm Gavin Gaddis. Here's what you need to know for today, Thursday, November 13th. Welcome to a special edition of the download. Longtime listeners might recognize the format, but for the newer folk in the crowd, here's what's happening. The core goal of the download is and always has been to condense the day's news into something compact that tells you what's happening and why you should go click through and read all the sources when time permits. Occasionally, a day will come along in the business of podcasting where there's too much to include, or the bulk of the news is on equal footing where it's difficult for me to sift out what should be a full story versus a shorter quick hit. Which leads to days like today where you're going to get an oops, all quick hits edition of the show. Before I get into that, some quick housekeeping reminders. We've got a few new positions come over on the Sounds Profitable job board this week, which you can go check out or submit your own open positions. And the Podscape Winter Update deadline is fast approaching. If you want to be a part of this bird's eye view of the business of podcasting, make sure your company is submitted to the official form by end of day, Friday, November 21st, which is a week from tomorrow. Now let's get into the news. First up, Brian Barletta has a new article explaining why Podcast Movement Evolutions is moving to South by Southwest starting next year and why it'll be free for attendees. Pre-registration is required and available through a form linked in today's episode notes. Through integrations with Shopify, S2S, Ibotta, and credit card transaction data, Podscribe can now link audio ad exposure to verified in-store conversions. Acast has beefed up AdColad's in-app chat functionality to cover the entire sponsorship process, allowing creators, advertisers, and Acast sales teams to ask questions and negotiate directly with an AdColab. In light of the recent announcement that TuneIn has been acquired by Stingray, John Wardock has written a holiday wish list of features and tweaks to TuneIn that could improve its podcast listening experience greatly. Magellan AI and ARN's iHeart have teamed up for another quarterly report for podcast advertising in Australia. Over Q3, the majority of brands kept their ads 15 to 30 seconds long. They preferred mid-rolls and focused on brand awareness campaigns. Speaking of Australia, Nova Entertainment has renewed their partnership with original and branded content production company Podshape. The long-term deal will focus on amplifying Podshape content on the Nova Podcast Network. Cumulus Media has signed the Shots Podcast Network portfolio to the Cumulus Podcast Network. And finally, Nielsen has announced industry expert Peter Naylor, late of Netflix, Snap, Hulu, and NBC Universal, is now their first ever Chief Content Officer. That'll do it for today's episode of The Download. You can find links to all those stories I just went over by clicking the link in your show notes to go to today's episode post on soundsprofitable.com. And as usual, the front page of Sounds Profitable has a sign up for the newsletter version of The Download that will send every single link to your inbox every day. The Download is written and produced by myself, Brian Barletta, and Tom Webster. For Sounds Profitable, I'm Gavin Gaddis, and I'll see you tomorrow morning for the Download Recap.